My name is Paula Devine. I'm the chair of the Commission on the Status of Women, and on behalf of the Glendale Commission on the Status of Women, I would like to welcome all of you to Women at the Table. This is an informative event to discuss the why and the how that women's voices are needed at the table and the many ways that diversity can make a positive difference and impact. We are fortunate tonight because we will be hearing from 3 women, all elected officials, who will be making an impact in our city. The Commission is proud to partner with City Clerk Artie Kasakian to bring you this program. Right now, I'd just like to comment and say thank you to all of you that are here, and congratulations for taking time out of your busy days to be here at this event. And to those of you that are interested in being commissioners or board members, I'd like to thank you for wanting to give of your time and your knowledge to the city. This is one way that we can keep this city great, is with your partnership with us. I'd also like to thank and recognize the elected officials that are here. Several of them will be on our panel tonight. First, Councilwoman Laura Friedman, Ann Ransford, who's currently on the Glendale Community College School Board, and Chris Walters from the Glendale Unified School District Board. Also in the audience, we have Nairi Nahabidian from the school board, and I'd like to thank former Commissioner on the Status of Women, Lena Bezoyan, for taking the time to be here. Later on, we'll be introducing the commissioners from the Commission on the Status of Women who are here as well. I thank the staff that is here. I thank the department heads and all the commissioners and board members who took the time to come tonight to share their knowledge of commissions and boards. Thank you all. I hope you're enjoying the food that's been provided by Damon's Steakhouse, and thanks to the generosity of City Clerk Artie Kasakian. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank Alyssa Glickman from the Alex Theater and the Glendale Arts and the Department of Parks and Recreation for putting together this event. And now, I'd like to present our partner in this event, City Clerk Artie Kasakian. We are, you can applaud now. We are always pleased to be able to partner with our city clerk, whose personal mission is to expand the office to do more voter awareness and outreach. Mr. Kasakian has consistently looked for opportunities to work with the Commission on the Status of Women, and we appreciate that. We are so pleased to put our collective and mutual passion on the topic of political participation to work for the benefit of our city with a partner like Artie, who is dedicated to his work, to his mission, and to his message. And so now I present City Clerk Artie Kasakian.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine, and thank you everyone for attending. As was mentioned by Commissioner Devine, when I'm not busy trying to live up to my introductions, I am doing the work of the City Clerk at City Hall. And part of that responsibility, in addition to running the council meetings or helping conduct the council meetings, running the city's elections, is also being the steward of the boards and commissions. So for those of you who are here with an interest in civic participation, in civic service, public service, your first stop for inquiries after this forum today, panel discussion, is going to be the City Clerk's website, hopefully. And you can find the city's website by either Googling it or searching it with whatever search engine of your choice, or going to the city's website, which is www.ci.glendale.ca.us. You've been giving out folders, but I know this will be airing on TV, so I'll mention that, and hopefully we can add a little graphic with the URL of the city's website, www.ci.glendale.ca.us. On the department websites, you'll go to the city clerk's website, and on our website, you'll see the section for boards and commissions. On there, we have a listing of all the commissions. You'll find out who the commissioners, current commissioners are, when there will be openings. I believe there will be openings probably by the end of summer. We'll have some of our first openings coming up. I encourage all of you to apply. as the famous adage goes, if you're not interested in politics, politics will eventually be interested in you. So I urge all of you to take an active interest in your local government, because it is, I think, the micro level where the rubber meets the road of, and I'll try to refrain from using yet another cliche in that sentence, but it's really where it happens. It's local government is where most of the work that affects our daily lives takes place, and the decisions are made, and that's parceled out to the various commissions. We have obviously the Commission on the Status of Women, but we have commissions that deal with traffic and transportation, arts and culture, parks and recreation, and so many others. And all of them are equally important to various segments of our community here. Now, I'm glad to see that there's an event that is specifically targeting women, because we definitely do need more diverse involvement in our local government, be that, people of various ethnic backgrounds, racial diversity, or gender diversity. And I remember, I'll just talk about, briefly touch upon the topic of gender equality by recounting an anecdotal discussion that I had with my aunt, who, my father's cousin, who's very accomplished. She's a dean of a university back in Lebanon, and of Haigazian University. And we were talking recently, during her most recent visit to the United States, we were talking about, the historic campaign, presidential campaign of Hillary Clinton. And obviously the outcome of the last presidential election was historic on numerous levels. We had the first African-American president, but we also had a woman candidate who made a genuine run for it, was very successful in her campaign. And I said, regardless of what the outcome is, this was pre-election, I said, it's just great to see that, if Hillary Clinton, who's so articulate, so smart, so knowledgeable, so experienced, gets elected, that, I think that'll be a sign of gender equality in this country. And my aunt corrected me, and rightfully so. She said, no, Ardashes, it will only achieve gender equality in this country when you have a mediocre woman with limited understanding of foreign policy, even poorer understanding of domestic policy, and limited English skills, or command of the English language, elected to the White House. Then you'll have truly achieved gender equality in the United States. And that's why she's a dean of a university, and I'm just a city clerk. So with that, I want to encourage you to continue striving for gender equality by participating in your local government. It starts with you, and I want to congratulate the Commission on Status of Women, and it is my privilege and honor to continue co-sponsoring this event. And I also want to thank the League of Women Voters, whose participation has helped us recruit more registered voters as well. So I encourage you, if you are registered and know someone who isn't, to pick up a registration card and take it and give it to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kasakian. And now it's my pleasure to present the moderator for tonight's panel discussion. And it warms my heart because she is close to all of the commissioners, because she is a former Commission on the Status of Women member, and now she serves on the Glendale Unified School District School Board. And that's Nairi Nahavidian. So let's give her a warm welcome.
Welcome, everyone. We are truly fortunate to live in a city where we have a Commission on the Status of Women such as the one we have, and a city clerk who does take the time and the energy to put an evening like this together again. And while I was thinking about the three smart and wonderful women who I will be introducing later on, I thought to myself, I'm very heartened by the recent national elections, and the fact that we have been able to move forward in this country in terms of race and gender equity. And then just a couple of nights ago, Thursday night, I was listening to the news, and there was discussion, commentary on the president's nominee for Supreme Court, Sonia Sotomayor, and I was just kind of came back to earth a little bit when I heard Karl Rove describe how emotional she will be in her decision making, and how this is a very undesirable thing to have. And so as women seeking to be not only in our private homes as leaders and as hard workers, but also in the public life, whether or not that's on commissions or boards or as a elected public server, we have automatic hurdles, and one of those automatic hurdles is this idea of when we are passionate, it becomes about being emotional, and that becomes a really negative thing. Three other automatic hurdles that I've noticed and have been kind of a witness to is the idea that as those women who run for office, when you keep the same variable in terms of the office that a man and a woman is running for, you keep the variable the same in terms of their abilities and their qualifications. What you see is in terms of fundraising, men being able to raise much more money than women, and we know that political elections cost money, and they actually, the public writes $500 checks for a man with the same variable in terms of what they're running for in the office and qualifications, and they'll write a $250 check for a woman. And so these are the kinds of automatic hurdles that come up. Another automatic hurdle that comes up when, as a woman candidate, is this idea of how do we communicate when our communication style is interpreted a certain way and very differently than how a communication is interpreted by a man. So if our tone and our level of and how we speak is a certain way, and we might be interpreted as being kind of hostile or too aggressive or some other words. And so this in dealing with gender equity and in the public life, these are some of the things that we all as men and women should be able to consider and think about and really be able to talk about as hurdles and as things to be able to overcome by ourselves as well, and not just men who are imposing it on them, but ourselves as giving interpretations that are really based on kind of gender-loaded gender identities that we've been brought up with, and we've been we've been socialized to understand to be. So as one of the ways to solve the gender gap in public policy and public service is to recruit, is to support, and is to train women. And this event is doing exactly that. This event tonight is helping to recruit women and helping to support women in their efforts to be in the public life, not only the private home life. And research has shown that women are more likely to run for office and more likely to apply for an appointment if a trusted friend or a relative asks them. And I bet that the women who are up here, a trusted friend or a relative asks them to consider running, and that's why they're here. And so keep talking to your girlfriends, to your cousins, and to your moms and your daughters about having them participate in the public life, in the public service life, because it is by having those kinds of conversations that will happen. So it gives me a real pleasure to first introduce Chris Walters, who has been now for a couple of meetings sitting side by side with me at the Board of Education. And we are really fortunate to have someone with Chris's background in economics and her background as a parent, as a PTA member, to be serving with us. Her expertise in finance are already being felt in terms of what she's bringing into the Board of Education. She has served in PTAs since her children were very young. Recently, she was elected the Hoover High School PTA president. She has been involved in grassroots community organizing work in the city, including Seeds of Peace. So it gives me great pleasure now to introduce to you Chris Walters so that she can tell us why she ran and how she won.
Well, I can tell you why I ran anyway. I'm still trying to figure out how I won, but and it was funny actually because when Nairi was talking about this, I really consider myself to be a pretty regular person, and so when anybody says we have these elected officials around here, and I'm like, where are they? I'm like, oh, that's me. My husband and I still kind of laugh around the house and they go, I'm an elected official. So I hope that you can see me mostly as a regular person, because that's exactly what I am, and I just happen to be playing a very new role. So yes, the why I ran, I guess a little bit about me and who I am. I've always been kind of one of these get-involved people. I've decided it's kind of in my DNA. I was student body president in 6th grade, and it just sort of went on from there. And certainly was influenced by my family. So school, church, and then as a parent, I just couldn't stay away from the schools. I was telling someone earlier, I probably should have been a teacher. I really do love schools. And but I looked at how much money they made. I'm like, I'm going to go a different path. So chose a business and finance path, but really still love being at school. So I've been at school as much as I can since my kids have been there. And so through that and through a number of things I've done, especially through the schools, some city-related things, I really have been able to build this network of people around me, and it is primarily women, actually. Primarily women who are very interested in living in a wonderful community where they're willing to roll up their sleeves and do some things to have it be the kind of place that they want to live. I do have some background, as Nairi mentioned, in community organizing, which is kind of what actually got me to decide to run this time, other than some trusted, or I should say used to be trusted friends, because I really didn't think I was going to win. Just kidding. So this organizing that I did was really about bringing different perspectives, many different perspectives, together and working through local issues. And so you hear the phrase, keep your friends close but keep your enemies closer, and that I really learned to believe that in a very big way, because bringing people that have different ideas together face to face and having a conversation where you're willing to disagree with each other is an incredible way to learn, to change some of your own ideas into what I have found generally to be better ideas. I think that's one thing that women in general are very, very good at. I think that we, and I apologize for stereotypes, but in general I think women are very good collaborators. And in a city like we live in that is incredibly diverse in so many different ways, for us to be willing to listen and seek out different perspectives and different ideas, I think is incredibly important. And so that organizing experience, on top of a presidential election where I saw people getting very, very excited about being engaged in politics. And for me, politics is really about what is the public good, and how do I engage myself in the public good. And so seeing people doing that, and having a presidential candidate who had some organizing background, who got frustrated that was slow, and that would be my primary frustration, and decided to go the elected route. I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a try. So I think that is why I am here today, and one of the things that I really look forward to over the next 4 years is seeking out many different perspectives and ideas, and getting input and engaging in conversations where we don't always agree about the public good, and specifically the arena that I'm in public education in Glendale. So that is why I decided to run, and why I think it matters, and I really do encourage all of you to do the same thing, to seek out your passions, and to give input, and seek out input from those that you don't necessarily see eye to eye with. And I think great things will start to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next we have Ann Ransford, who ran for College Board and won as well. And Ann has a long history with the Glendale Community College, and diverse, in many different positions, including teaching and administration as well. She has a long history of leadership in our community, including the Glendale College Foundation, including the Glendale Chamber of Commerce, the YWCA. And I have to tell you, as I was looking at the biographies of these women, I was reminded of many years ago. I read and I noticed an article in the paper that said, men look at job announcements in the paper, and they say, well, I can apply for that, even though they don't fully qualify for that particular job in terms of the qualifications that are outlined. And they will apply for it. They do apply for it. And what happens with women is that they apply when they are overqualified. That's when it seems like they're at a place where they can say, I will do it. And so as I was looking at all the work these women have done, it reminded me that something to consider is that over and over again, I think we need to jump in there when we think that we're not ready. We probably are overly ready. So we have Ann Ransford to join us as our second speaker, and come on up, Ann.
First of all, thank you for this opportunity, and for those of you who are voters in Glendale and maybe voted for me, thank you very much. I appreciate that, because it's been a most humbling experience to be elected to this position. I was going to just discuss some random thoughts that I had as a result of having this campaign. The first one is campaigning is just practice for the real job. The second one is to remember to think outside the box. And the other one is to test yourself, because it's exciting and a growth experience. Okay, campaigning, you think that that's it, you know? Campaigning. First of all, the most common question that you're asked is, why are you doing this? And it's interesting, because that's not a question. If you go on a trip to Paris, does anybody look at you and say, why are you going to Paris? Maybe your mother. But, you know, over and over again, that's the first question you're asked is, why are you running for this office? So it's really important to have, or on the commission would be the same experience, to have a real firm idea in your mind why you're doing that. And just to digress for a second, it's interesting because the person that first suggested to me that I run for office was at my retirement party, was one of the members of our facilities staff, a gentleman. And so I've always given him a lot of credit for that, because I had a unique resume that matched, I think, what needed to happen at Glendale College. You know, the other piece that, you know, there's sort of campaigning etiquette, and the other piece that I really liked, it took me a while to get into it, but one of the greatest things is you can just walk up to anybody and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. I mean, most of the time, you know, you really wouldn't be able to do that. So there's just these things that are, you know, kind of unique to the campaign. And the other thing is that as you're forming your reason for why you want to do something, sometimes you'll have a certain, or your platform, you'll have certain ideas, and then it gets refined or gets changed, just as we watched with President Obama, starting out talking about the war, and then he ended up, the economy was really his issue. And as you know, refine your position, that will happen to you too. One of the most important things is trying to convince people why you are a valid candidate. And once you get elected, that's part of what your job is. We're all one of 5 people. And so we're campaigning for whatever our positions are, often among the 4 other members of the board, or with our people in our community. So that's just a beginning for that. So you're always working on getting your supporters, and as again, you're practicing for the real job. And then it's those forums, which I think we would all agree were, you know, off-putting, but that's where you are. You know, the newspaper comes up and gives you a call, so you got to think on your feet right then. So again, it's practice. A question you didn't think you were going to get, and you've got to answer it in 1 minute before they cut you off. And the same thing at board meetings. So again, even those forums are as painful as they certainly are a great experience for the real job. And organizational skills. I've been talking to several people here, and they've talked about how difficult it would be to have a job, a real job, and then to have any of these positions also. I happen to be very fortunate because I'm retired, so I don't have that perspective. But so organizational skills are really important in a campaign, and they're really important once you get into the position too. Okay, so you need to think outside the box, think of some way to sell yourself. And so I'm wearing this red jacket for a reason. And when I came in, somebody says, "Oh, you've got your red jacket on." I didn't really start my campaign this way, but as it went through, this red jacket became my campaign piece. And every one of my pieces had me in this red jacket. Every forum I went to, I wore this red jacket. And at the end of the campaign, I said, you're not going to see this anymore because I'm kind of tired of it. But people have come up to me, just like tonight. I walked in and they said, "Oh, you've got your red jacket on." So that's one example of thinking outside the box. It didn't really necessarily start out, except I give credit to Mary Boger. She said to me when I decided to run, she said, "What you need to do as far as a wardrobe, have 2 or 3 outfits so that you're not thinking what you're going to wear all the time. So you can just go to your closet, grab something." And so I took her advice, and she kind of did push me towards red. So and that's just one example. There are lots of other examples too. And then the beauty of trying something new, I just can't emphasize enough how important that is. It's important to keep ourselves engaged and keep life exciting, is to try new things and to learn new things. And I have said this was an amazing growth experience for myself, and of course once I got the job, that's an even more amazing growth experience. And whatever it is that you're looking to do, to be on the commissions, they're great ways to get involved in community life. I served on Parks and Recreation Commission for 6 years, and it gave me the ability to talk on the campaign trail. I knew something about what it was like to be a member of a 5-member board. So just in closing, I just want to say it's a learning, humbling, and exciting experience, and I can see why politics is so seductive.
Thank you, Anne. And as you can see, Anne served on the Parks and Recs, and Laura served on the Design Review Board for many years, and I served on the Commission on the Status of Women. And so these are the places to begin, and our ways to be able to be of service. And so Laura. Long overdue to have some gender diversity on the City Council, isn't it? So Laura has been on the City of Glendale Design and Review Board and has been appointed for, I think, 5 years, and so also has had her own small business, and she an owner and starter of her own small business, Planet Glass, Art Glass dealership, Boardwell Market, and vice president of development of another company. So she brings the private, I'm going to say a private corporate background and small business background, is a graduate of UCLA School of Theater Arts, and has done film production as well. So we are really pleased. Again, Laura ran for the first time and won, just like these other two women did. And so, Laura, we're pleased to have you. Come on up and tell us how it is right now.
I'm honored to be here tonight, and I want to really thank all of you for coming, and if you're watching at home, I want to thank you for participating, because the stronger our city's strength really is directly related to the participation of the people who live in it. And the more varied voices we can have, the more people with different backgrounds, the more people from different ethnicities, the more people from different genders, from both genders, and the more people with different experiences that we have will bring all of those experiences and all of that wisdom into city government. So it's so important that people that have an interest really act on that and want to get involved. And probably you're a little bit like I was 6 years ago, where you thought to yourself, well, how could I be involved because I don't have a law degree and I didn't study political science? Well, neither did I. I was just a person who bought a house in Glendale and fell in love with the neighborhood and fell in love with the city and looked around and thought to myself that I wanted to make a difference in the city and I wanted to get to know my city better. What we're looking for commissioners are people who look around and want to give of themselves and to impact the city. And you can be a mom that maybe has a little extra time, or you can be a business person that has a certain area of expertise that you think will be valuable to the city. Or you can be a retired person who wants to bring years of experience and years of knowing the city and to help out. And you can be all of those things and be somebody that will bring something very special to city government. So if you're at all inclined, I urge you to come forward and to see what you have to offer, because it doesn't take a law degree, and it doesn't take having studied political science, and it doesn't take having an intimate knowledge of the city. It doesn't take knowing somebody important. You can become that important person yourself, and you do have something special to offer if you're willing to come forward and to bring it. And sometimes it takes persistence, but if you are persistent and willing to stay on it, eventually you'll find your place where you can make that impact. So I started 6 years ago by getting involved in the city's design review process. And at the time, I was somebody who had done a little bit of work in historic preservation, just as a volunteer working with the LA Conservancy. And I was able to convince people that were looking for a commissioner that might be something valuable on the design review board. I wasn't an architect. I didn't even know how to read plans, although I didn't tell them that. But I used the resources that were on that board once I was appointed to pull the architects aside and say, teach me how to read plans. I wasn't shy of getting them before the meeting and saying, can you go through this with me and tell me exactly what all of this means? And it didn't take long before I learned all of that. And it was so wonderful for me to be able to grow and to learn about this whole field of architecture that I knew very little about but had a strong interest in. And it also gave me the opportunity to really get to know my city government, to meet the people who operated the city, to meet planning directors and to meet elected representatives, and to really have a hands-on sort of education about how a city government operated. So it was an incredible learning experience, and that's what directly gave me the background to feel that I could impact the city in bigger ways. It also gave me the opportunity to meet people who would later on become the people who stood by me when I decided to run for office. A few of them are here today. Elaine Wilkerson just snuck in, and she's the former planning director for the city. Paula Devine, who's somebody who has her fingers all over the service groups in the city and who's always volunteering for things. And when I decided that I wanted to take my service up to the next level and be elected, it was these people who shared their wisdom and their experience and their contacts and all of those things that make a successful run for political office with me. So if you want to get to that place, and by the way, when I started on Design Review Board, I had no idea I was going to ever run for office. I just wanted to be on Design Review Board. But sometimes one thing leads to another, and having that involvement does open doors for you. It opens your eyes as to what's possible in your own life and into the city, and it also opens those doors of opportunity. So I hope that everybody who's here today and everybody who's watching will think about what you bring to the table and what you'd like to bring to the city. Even if you're just a bossy buttons who thinks that you can do a better job than the rest of us, good. I want your involvement, and I want you to help us guide this city. So again, thank you all for coming, and I hope to see more of you applying for boards and commissions.
Our panelists are going to stay with us to have some question and answer period, so I would love to have some questions from the audience to our panelists.
I would say, first of all, you have to think about what you're really interested in. Whether you're interested in environmental issues, or you're interested really in sort of politics, or whether you're interested in just getting a bike route, put it in your neighborhood. All of those things are, in essence, political. And the road to getting to those things leads through the political road. So think about what you want to do for your community, and let that be your jumping off point into the rest. In terms of politics itself, I'll tell you one thing that I did when I was in high school that I think made running for office a little easier, and that's I got involved in the debate team and was involved in forensics and student government. It gave me enough to make me not want to go to law school, believe it or not. It made me totally shun the political world for many years because I just felt like that's just not for me. I'm going to go to Hollywood and become a filmmaker. But sometimes that early training kind of sneaks back up on you, even if you don't realize it's going to. So I think that forensics can be very, very valuable if you really want to be in politics. But if you want to be on a commission or impact your community, think about what you think is missing in the community, what you'd like to see more of in your community. Maybe it's a skate park. Maybe it's something just as obvious as that, and work to make it happen. And just by doing that, you are a politician.
Well, my entry into all these fields is kind of unique. The reason I was interested in Parks and Recreation is I was a recreation major in college, and I did work for a city Parks and Recreation. I worked for a couple cities, and then ended up working at Glendale Community College. But it was always in my mind that that was an area that I knew I had some professional expertise, and so when that position became available, I applied and felt that I could bring something to the table that was unique, which is kind of similar to the situation I was in at Glendale College. I had worked at Glendale College for 36 years and retired, and so it was an obvious next step in many ways. So my entry into politics is very, very different. And my only other experience was in high school, running for office, and I never even got elected because they all thought I was too silly. But I showed them.
These days, I think one of the most important skills you can have is to be able to listen. And I think it's one of the things that, as a culture, that we have forgotten something about, and that we want to have the right answer. And I think that for us to learn to become better listeners and to hear what the other has to say, and to really, it's the seek first to understand and then be understood, I think is an incredible skill that we can all, no matter where we are and what we're doing, that we can really expand on and become much better at. So that would be my number one.
I think you have to be really willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to go up to people and say, hi, I'm so-and-so, hi, I'm so-and-so. And then again, just like Chris was saying, engage them in conversation, but don't just talk about yourself. Ask them questions. I would say, do you have any concerns about Glendale College? What do you think about this? So again, it's building on the listening. But at first, it was very hard. I mean, I'm fairly outgoing, but it was a little hard for me at first. But once you get onto it, it's really fun, because as I say, you can, in the grocery store, you see someone and you can go up and say hi, and, I ended up giving signs to people that I met at Whole Foods or wherever. So being out there, putting yourself out there, I think is really important, and being organized. Can't underestimate being organized and getting folks involved, in your campaign, because you can't do it alone.
It's a good question. It's a tough question to answer. I'll tell you, as a commissioner, what I thought was important and what I always tried to do, which is that when anyone would come to speak in front of us, which happened, of course, every meeting, and I was at a fairly contentious board. Design review tends to be difficult. There are difficult issues. You have a lot of people that are very emotionally and financially invested in the outcome of your decision. So there's a lot of tempers flaring, and it's tough. What I would always try to do was to listen to people in a way that I wouldn't argue against them in my mind. I tried to listen to them to really understand their perspective. Even if it seemed like it was something that maybe I wouldn't agree with, for at least those 3 minutes they were speaking, I put myself in their shoes, and I would do the best I could to put myself in their shoes so that I could really understand their point. And sometimes that helped me, I think, come to a place where we could find a compromise, where I understood what was really important to them, but also what was important maybe to the parties that were in opposition, and to try to craft a resolution so that someone didn't walk out feeling that they weren't heard, that their issues weren't addressed, but that they got a fair hearing, that they were understood, and that at least the resolution was something that they could live with, that they could understand.
I think it depends a lot on the commission you're probably on. Parks and Recreation wasn't as contentious as your experience. I mean, we had a few issues, but basically there's usually a meeting once a month, and that's one thing that you need to do that's 3 or 4 hours. And then the other thing that will happen is there'll be events that for example, in Parks and Recreation, if they were dedicating a park or something like that you would want to be at. Where you end up spending more time is when usually the chair is a rotational situation, and when you become the chair, then you need to meet with the department head before the meeting so that you're clear what the agenda is and how you're going to lead the meeting and so forth. So then you have a more responsible time frame.
Design review meets bi-monthly, so it's twice a month. And they meet usually, I'd say on average, about 4 hours a night. Some of the commissions meet less. Design review happens, they have 2 different boards of 5 people each, and they meet every single week. And then besides that, you also have to prepare, which means going on site visits, driving around and looking at the different properties. I liked to walk them when I could, when it was practical, and review the plans. My husband's a landscape designer, so I always would go over the plans with him, and he would see things that I wouldn't see. So it's not a huge amount of time, but you have to be willing to give up that one day every 2 weeks or the one day a month, depending on the commission that you're on, and doing a little bit of homework.
When I served on the commission, and I think it's still the same, it's once a month meeting. So the thing to do is to find out how often the commission or the board that you're interested in, how often do they meet? When do they meet? Does it fit with the schedule that you have in terms of which evening they meet or which afternoon? And so there's that meeting, and then there's the preparation for the meeting in terms of reading materials that we are so fortunate to have a staff in the city of Glendale to help prepare or to prepare. And then to see where your passion is and what to take leadership in a particular activity or a goal or an event that that particular commission or board is involved in. When I came in today, I had someone who I was speaking with and met for the first time say, I'd like to help, but I don't see myself as being on a commission or a board. And so I think we're here today to say that many of us did not see ourselves on a commission or on a board or in an elected office. However, if you have a passion for something about your city, if you have a passion for your city, and if you have some time to give, we would love for you to apply for one of the commissions and the boards. And so with that, I'm going to ask Commissioner Devine to come up and say a few words. And I would like to also acknowledge, as Commissioner Devine is coming up, the members of the Commission on the Status of Women for their passion and excitement to spread the word about the importance of women being represented at the table. I know it's where I got my start in the city, and I'm thankful for the support that I still receive from the Commission on the Status of Women. And today we have with us Talar Malakian, who is the student ex officio commissioner. We have Mary Lamel and Elizabeth Manasserian, and also Paula Devine, chair. So Paula, would you come and say a couple of closing comments?
First, I would like to thank all of our panel members, our elected women. You're great role models for all of us, and successful, strong, brilliant women, and we wish you the best, and I know that Glendale is in good hands. For those of you that are out here watching or in our audience today, I hope that you will take heart, be enthusiastic, come on out and be a commissioner, go to the city clerk's office, file an application. We need you, and would love to have you. Make your voices heard. That's the most important message for the women in this community. Make your voices heard. You can make a difference, and we want you to do that. So thank you all for being here tonight.